that Nebraska Colorado game, Lincoln looked like it was on fire out there. All of that sea of red, that primetime game. I mean, it looked you don't see many primetime Nebraska games. They haven't been good for a very long time, but again, a lot of expectation around that team this year. Dylan Raiola at quarterback, and they overwhelmed Colorado. It was kind of evident that Colorado, similar to Michigan, just wasn't on their level. Um, I think Nebraska, and they are now in the top 25, but going into the game, they were an unranked team. It's always interesting with these Colorado games because there's just hype around an unranked team like you've never seen before. Like to my knowledge, like usually when there's this much this many eyes or hype and primetime games around a school, it's usually a high ranked school, a competitive team. And so it's always funny. It was seeing that was an unranked matchup primetime game. But that's what happens when Deion Sanders is your coach. And so for this game, I wanted to do the good, bad, and the ugly for Colorado. This wasn't competitive, really. Nebraska made a statement early, and pretty much the whole first half they kind of put it away. But let's start with the good for Colorado. The good for me was that their defense didn't allow any touchdowns from Nebraska in that second half. Any points at all, actually. They didn't allow Nebraska to score in that second half. I had questions about their defense against North Dakota State. I didn't really know with how much success North Dakota State was having moving the ball on them. This I feel like was a sign of encouragement. I think again, you look at the score, blowout win, wasn't close at all. But I think you look at it, Shador in the Colorado offense, they went 3-and-out on the first drive, and then 4-and-out. They went forward on fourth down on their second drive, and then Shador throws a pick six and drive after that. And so, 28 to what was the final score in that game actually? 28 to 10. I think they end up scoring in the end actually. Yeah, 28 to 10. One of those touchdowns was a defensive touchdown that was handed to them. And so a shutout against Nebraska in the second half isn't bad. I felt like that's something for them to hang their hat on and build upon, and hopefully rely on later in the season. Again, they don't have a cakewalk schedule, so they're gonna need that defense to show up. So again, good, bad, and ugly. I thought that was good. Shutting out Nebraska in the second half, some encouragement for them. Then we get to the bad. They have no running game. they have no presence of a rush at all, and I think that's why you get that pick six from Shador. They were already backed up. He was taking the snap from inside the end zone on that one, and by that time, Nebraska, this is their third possession, or Colorado's third possession. Nebraska knew that they couldn't run the ball, and so they're just gonna flat out play aggressively and bring pressure, which they did. And Shador knows that they can't run the ball, and he's just that forces you to make a quick decision. Just try to get the ball out of your hands. Don't get a safety. And the other thing you don't want to do is throw an interception when you're when you're already in the end zone, because that's what happens. Pick six. And so that is really bad for Colorado. And their offensive line, they were completely overmatched. And they had no answer for Nebraska. And again, I think that just is unfortunate. Shador was sacked 6 times this game, and kind of just reminiscent of what we saw last year. So that was the bad for Colorado. And the ugly truth, the ugly reality for Colorado here is, unfortunately, I think they are in danger of a repeat of last season. After seeing that game, this was really the test game for me to see where Colorado was. That first week, they had a competitive game against an FCS school, and won by, I think, 5 points or so. And saw some glimpses. We saw how great Travis Hunter is. We saw how great Shador Sanders is. No surprise. We already knew that. There were still questions about the offensive line. There were still questions about their run game, and still questions about the defense. Again, the defense, I think they answered. They tried their best. But when your offense gives you no production and you're just constantly on the field, it's only so much you can do against a quarterback, and on the road, just so many things going against you. So I think we got answers on all the things we had questions for coming into the season and after week 1. I say this also thinking about Nebraska, right? We expected Nebraska to be better this season, and to be a team on our radar, kind of where they are now. Top 25, y'all are making improvements. They are not, and it's early to say this, but in my opinion, they are not what Colorado made them look like. Like, Colorado played them like they were going into the Nick Saban Alabama dynasty that they had to go and defeat. And a lot of that, again, is just that environment, that hype around that team out there in Lincoln this year. But at the time of that game, that was an unranked team against an unranked team. And Colorado didn't even look like they were in the stratosphere of a Nebraska, an unranked team at the time. And so when you put that into perspective, again, your schedule doesn't get any easier throughout this season. That was one of your tougher games, and it was a road game. But, I mean, they play Colorado State next week. That's going to be a tough, like, there's no, similar to what I said last week about Florida State, there's no gimme those games. There's no, like, oh, Colorado will take care of that. You don't know. You won't really know. And so I saw a quote from Dion. He still has confidence in the offensive line. I'm not sure that I do. I don't know if Shador would echo that. But one game, maybe they'll bounce back from it. We saw Shiloh Sanders is out for a few weeks as well with that broken forearm. Hoping for a speedy recovery for him. But yeah, that was just disappointing showing for Colorado for sure. I'm sure they wanted to compete more, but all in all, it looked like kind of more of the same of what we saw last year. But big game against Colorado State in Colorado State this time. Last year it was in Colorado. It's weird, same exact state, just probably down the street or something. But yeah, that should be a good game. Good opportunity for them to try to bounce back against a not so highly ranked team. Maybe not as good as Nebraska, but still going to be competitive as we saw last year. So that was the Nebraska Colorado game